name is Jeremy Seitz. I think Jeremy and Harry, you have a special relationship. It will be fun to watch Harry handle this situation. So I will not reveal more. Okay. So I will leave it to you guys now to take over for this next segment.
Thanks a lot,
Up
Ben.
to you, Harry.
Thank you.
Yeah, we have a special relation. We have beards.
Yes, there's that going on.
You have more hair. So yeah, the full disclosure, Jeremy and I used to work together at a company called local.ch, the Swiss phone book. And we had a great time with the engineering culture and we directly actually we didn't work that much, but we worked sort of parallel in different spaces. So it's a pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much for taking
Thank you.
time.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
So you're the CTO of the newly formed TX Markets.
Yes. Yeah.
And also this year, so I guess you still are, or at interim, you transitioned from being CTO of Ricardo,
correct,
to TX. So you're now in the kind of the umbrella, which gives you, like a kind of a group responsibility now for Ricardo, Homegate, Tutti, Job Cloud, Coffee. How's this changed life?
Well, it's a very different kind of experience. I mean, at the moment, it's really hard because I'm kind of doing both. So I'm trying to split my time or double my time between the two companies. But I think it's really exciting because I actually started at TX Group in 2016 and was working in the central services at that time in the very early days, and then went to Ricardo to help them with the transformation. And along the way, I learned a lot. And also, I got to know many of the engineers here at TX Group, and which then, the parts of it that became TX Markets. So it's a different mission. It's definitely more indirect, whereas at Ricardo, we were more directly thinking about what it is we need to build and launch and the issues of the engineers. Here, I'm more on a meta level thinking about, in each of the companies, the kind of challenges that they're experiencing, like I experienced, but every company is different. Every company is not like Ricardo. So that's my first goal, is to try to understand in as much as I can how the other companies are working, because we were very separate before.
That's an interesting, because we had an interview before with Mr. Supino, and he was talking about how the companies become much more decentralized this year in becoming TX Group. Do you see a way also to have some kind of shared, I don't know, like capabilities or knowledge or across the different companies, and how would you go about bringing this to happen?
So this is something that I'll talk about in my talk, which is coming up in about an hour, but essentially I could summarize it by saying that even though the change of TX Group decentralized, it did create in marketplaces much more focus on the marketplace challenge. So a lot of the companies are dealing with the same issues, working with similar software, working with similar processes. So what I basically want to try to do is to create a space where the engineers in each of those companies can begin to not only collaborate together more and talk to each other more through a guild kind of model, but even to the point that they are contributing code with each other. What I would describe as kind of an open source, an internal open source model. And eventually get to the point where we can be more fluid with where we're putting our efforts between the companies. So if one company is solving a really hard problem and another company is going to face that problem, more than just knowledge, we can actually share components or even people's skills to solve those problems.
Okay, so maybe even it would look something more like I tentatively say how Google approaches their product development or something.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, something that I see in a lot of larger companies where they have, let's say, a house of multiple brands, is that they tend to share internally more. The successful ones do this internal sharing. But there's a big difference between centralization, meaning that we create a central team that does something for all the other companies, and collaboration, meaning that we allow each of the companies time and space to work together and contribute and maintain collective things, whether it's knowledge bases or code bases. This is where I think the real power of it is, because if I look at a very successful large open source project, for example, it makes me think, why can't we be more like that? Yeah. Why can't we solve some of these problems together in a collaborative way?
Yeah, yeah, that's super. I mean, when I hear guilds, I also think that there's, we have the famous event in Zurich, Exec-Salute, where all the guilds come out. Where are the software developers? That's something that's missing.
Yeah, exactly.
So actually what you alluded to, so the team I work in was actually the team I think you kind of founded at the beginning. And I guess you were also involved in maybe even the first TX conference?
Yeah, the second. I mean, the first one I was remotely kind of connected with it only I was still officially at Swisscom at that time, but I was about to move to media at that time. But the second one I was heavily involved in, and that was when we started this kind of growth spurt on the conference. I mean, it originally took place downstairs in this room.
Yeah, yeah.
It was just like, 60 people in this room, and it's amazing to think how much it's grown now. So.
Yeah, yeah. And at the moment we couldn't put 60 people in it. But some of your talks were especially 2018. You brought this amazing synthesizer deck.
Yes.
What's with the synthesizers?
So one of the things that I have always kind of done, at least for the last 10 years, is part of the way that I work out my thinking with problems at work, because they tend to be very complex, is by finding analogies or other things that other fields, other disciplines that let me look at a problem in a new way. And I love to tinker with things. So I have a basement and a workshop, and I do everything from woodworking to electronics to music, and a lot of different projects in parallel. But what I did in 2018 was I decided at some point to build a synthesizer. And my goal was to have it be extremely large and to look like a control panel of a spaceship. Wow. So I didn't really know that much about how that stuff worked at the time. I had mainly just worked with keyboards and standard things. So I taught myself that, designed a case, built a case, started building kits from that I had ordered online, and eventually built it up into something that was mostly workable. I still have it, I still use it, and I do some performances a few times a year. So I most recently did an event in Lucerne before the lockdown happened. That was pretty cool. There were about 80 people there, and it was just a live kind of music thing. But my point is, with all of these modules and all of this complexity, you start to think about how everything is interconnected and dependent. And then you start to see how standards, things like the way that cables work, or the standards of the jacks or the electronics components, how this helps you carve through a complex problem and actually make it work. In any complex system, like if you go back 80 years ago, people were playing with model railroads while they were at the office building incredibly complex banking systems. You see this in Switzerland quite a lot. Yeah. Working with any kind of complex interconnected system helps you see, whether it's software or people, how to make it work better.
And we've had lockdown. Yeah, I guess you're at home a lot with all your electronics. Were there more things built in this last year?
Yes. So I unfortunately don't have anything to show at the conference yet, but I got deep into designing circuit boards. So I taught myself how to use KiCad and how to build and design circuits and how to source components and all of that. And I've been getting circuit boards manufactured overseas, and even using pick-and-place machines from companies to populate those circuit boards. And I'm currently working on two projects. One is a series of LED panels that have a translucent, they're circuit boards with the panels made also out of circuit boards. So the entire thing is constructed from circuit boards, even the mechanical part. And this is a huge wall of pixels, basically, that will have animation. So when I'm on a hangout, trying to have a serious meeting with somebody, there's stuff happening behind me.
Okay.
And the second project I'm working on is taking old school LED digits, 7-segment displays like you'd have on calculators, or you see still on signs some places like parking signs or whatever, and sourcing these components. And I'm building a wall that is about 1.5 by 0.5 meter that consists of about 1,000 LED digits, and then software that runs on a embedded high-speed microcontroller that can create really high frame animations on this. So it looks really cool.
Wow. But, actually, the first thing now, see, this is what happens when I talk to you, is we start getting crazy ideas or interesting problems, because this thing with the background for Hangouts, I think a big issue now is when you have Hangouts, you miss most of the body language, which makes it hard. You have to concentrate hard and actually listen to people. And who likes listening to anyone? So, no, I'm a joke, of course. But that it would be interesting to experiment with these. If you could convey at least some kind of emotion with colors, so you get some indication of what they're trying to say body language wise from their background, which, yeah,
it could be interesting. I mean, there's some really cool biomechanical stuff that you can do now with pulse oximeters, checking your blood oxygen level, or heart rate monitors, skin tension, all kinds of stuff. And, I could imagine hooking up myself to a bunch of sensors that could basically cause lights to go off based on what's happening. But then I imagine during a management meeting, the entire wall would be flashing like red or something. Might not be very good.
Yeah, exactly. How long have we got? We've got a little bit longer. So it's time to blow. So Robin is famous, Robin Simon, in past conferences for making all the CTOs miserable of the companies by making fun of the features that they don't. And one of his favorites, I think, was that at Ricardo, to get a login, you needed to have a letter sent to you by the post to validate that you're a real person. And he made a lot of fun of this.
Yeah.
Is there anything you'd like to announce as maybe something you achieved to Robin at Ricardo?
Well, I mean, getting rid of this letter, for context, to become a member of Ricardo, you had to receive this letter in the mail, which surprisingly is still available because some people value that feeling of trust. There's people in Switzerland that actually feel like I want it in the mail. It's even an option for electronic billing. Is not okay for them. They want the actual paper. But we got rid of that requirement. We now make it so that login is very seamless and quick. The registrations, by the way, went up tremendously at Ricardo, and the entire platform is much easier to use than it was years ago. But I can't take credit for that. The product team and the engineers worked really hard on that. I think the kind of momentum that we've had at Ricardo has been exactly because when you get the right zone of product and engineering working together and solving problems and thinking about the user issues rather than working separately, really good stuff starts to happen. So,
okay, but for Robin, you can't make that joke.
I will say though that Robin's tough-hitting jokes, like these kinds of things, he hits pretty hard sometimes, but he's had a profound effect on the bravery of the product people in the company, and created a role model for like how you can cut through the stupid stuff and actually get good results as quickly as possible. This is an important mindset to have, for sure.
Okay, so what leaves? Last thing to do. This is the tradition of the TX conference hoodie.
Nice.
Each year we have a new design.
Awesome. It's so cool. Thank you.
With pleasure. Thank you so much
for coming and talking to us. Yeah.
You're back here in a little while anyway, and good luck with your talk.
Awesome.
I'm sure, a lot of people want to hear that if they're not watching Counter-Strike right now.
I think I would be playing Counter-Strike right now.